Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Monday, December 13th, 2010, and I'm Darko. Welcome to part 2 of this economic news bulletin. New listeners, if you're just joining us in this part 2, please please visit my website, www.ggnonline.com. That's ggnonline.com. Alright, I finished up with this article in part 1. Bill Clinton supports Obama's tax cuts. And I also covered the actual tax cuts bill itself. But I don't normally go into the whole political aspects of economic policy or social policy because, honestly, I don't think that us, the common man, really, or woman, really has any say in anything that goes on in Washington. In fact, I'm 99% sure that we don't. And if you would disagree with me and you feel like Mr. Smith and want to go to Washington, you go right ahead, and you can have nice gray hair and that you can pull out when you're trying to get things done, and you realize that you can't, that it's all a sham, that you really can't help everybody in this type system, whether it's a government or not. Actually, with no government, I think you'd be better off, but I'm just saying the big bureaucracy of going to Washington and thinking that you live in a democracy or a republic or a democratic republic is a joke. So I try not to waste my time on it. So the only reason I wanted to talk about this was because, you see, I believe that both parties are both bought out, and I don't think they really represent or even ever represented the American people. And it's just like that in Australia and the UK and any other, quote, democratic country where they'll just have the same two parties. And they'll have third parties, but even them they're usually bought out too, and they're usually I believe it's the Libertarians were funded or created by the Democrats, and I don't know the exact sources of that. Just basically a hearsay from someone else out in this little information movement that we got going, and it's just it's a bunch of crap. And so you have Bill Clinton being used to come on board and show his face to all the Democrats, because now I guess Obama's a lame duck and so he can't get anything done, right? And so they have basically, you have Obama, right? And he's doing these tax cuts, and he's doing it more to basically mask what the Federal Reserve System is doing. And so he can't even get enough support from his own party. And he's a Democrat, he's a big government, and he's, supporting this, big neoconservative, Bush tax cuts. That's kind of a conflict of interest. Well, no, it's not, because he represents Wall Street. And, when he came in, I never was under the assumption that he was liberal or conservative. I think he's just a fascist, just like Clinton, just like Bush. Just like most of the presidents that preceded both of them. So they just used him because Clinton, in the eyes of liberals and Democrats, is basically God. So, excuse my microphone here. He's God. And so they brought him on board to sell it, and they got the job done. So former President Bill Clinton has urged Democrats in Congress to approve Obama's tax cut deal agreed upon Republicans before this year. And so basically, to leave you with this thought in mind, if you're new to this type of information or these types of concepts, is that he was brought on board to basically as an image for people who are still fooled by this illusion that there's a two-party system and that it's democratic. And so they brought him on board basically to fool those people that still think that there's party politics and bipartisanship. So whatever, it got the job done. So hopefully I didn't beat a dead horse with that. Orange juice jumps to 3-year high as Florida freeze damage or may damage citrus. Orange juice futures jumped to the highest since May 2007 after Florida, the world's second biggest citrus grower, declared a state of emergency amid severe cold and prospects of cold damage. So, and they're also trying to introduce GMO oranges due to this some disease or something in the oranges. So now it's just they're not even going to look at the fact that they're basically spraying chemicals, including nanoparticles, in the sky globally almost on a daily basis, and they're not even going to look at that as far as it having an effect on these oranges. No, they're just going to say, oh, we need GMO. So a secretive banking elite rules trading in derivatives. This is published by the New York Times. It says on the third Wednesday of every month, the 9 members of the elite Wall Street Society gather in Midtown Manhattan, and it said the men share a common goal to protect the interests of big banks in the vast market for derivatives, one of the most profitable and controversial fields in finance. They also share a common secret. The details of their meetings, even their identities, have been strictly confidential. So there you go, folks. That's a very free market. You're living in a free society. Please come and feel free to check out this link. It'll be posted in the video's description. All the articles will be. Just check down in there, and you can finish reading it yourself. I'm just going through the headlines here, give you my quick opinion. U.S. credit default swaps decline in longest stretch since November 2009. The cost of protecting bonds from default in the U.S. fell for the 9th trading day. It said the longest streak in 13 months as Federal Reserve spending to stimulate the economy encourages investors to embrace credit risk. So there you go. And it's kind of hard because these whole credit default swaps are a part of this derivative crisis, because there was, you can call it a housing bubble crisis, but it was a derivative crisis. I mean, that's basically what it came down to. The housing was just a side effect of it. It was an end result of the derivatives, which are basically unregulated. They don't even know how many are out there. So it's a joke to even say that they've declined. They don't even know how many freaking things there are out there and how many. So, like I said, I don't believe in any of that crap. Low interest rates failing to rescue British households from $1.45 trillion debt, says Bank of England. Low interest rates are not fixing Britain's household debt burden, a damning survey for the Bank of England has found. It says here, fewer U.S. homes in negative equity due to a rise in foreclosures. A rise in the U.S. home foreclosures has led to a fall in properties worth less than the debt owed on them, according to a real estate data company. Moving on here, it says factories feel the squeeze of inflation. British factories felt the squeeze of inflation in November as the cost of raw materials rose more than expected, far outstripping increases in the prices paid by their customers. And yeah, that's basically what happened with GM. That's why their profits increased, because they were charging more. Housing prices fall faster as a state agent predicts worse to come. House prices fell by 3%, or nearly £7,000 during the last month, according to Rightmove, Britain's biggest online estate agent, with forecasts that they will fall by more next year. So it says Rightmove claims to advertise 90% of the properties on the market, and says the national average asking prices have now fallen in 5 of the last 6 months. It predicts the worst to come next year as the housing market is hit by fears of rising unemployment, increased forced sales, and it says here interest rate increases and lenders' reluctance to advance mortgages. Regulators regulate any damn thing, and we're good at it too. I think that's how it goes. But regulators exist to serve the banks, next House Finance Chairman declares. Alabama Republican Spencer Baucus, the incoming chairman of the House Banking Committee, suggests Congress and federal regulators should play a subservient role with banks. Quote, in Washington, the view is that the banks are to be regulated, and my view is that Washington and the regulators are there to serve the banks, Baucus told the Birmingham News in the interview. Moving on here to the Mail Online, arrogance, incompetence, and shameful bid to hide the truth about the bank collapse that nearly ruined Britain. You can go in there and check this, and it says the refusal to make public the report into the catastrophic failure of the Royal Bank of Scotland tells us a great deal about the arrogance and hopeless judgment of the city's financial regulator. So it goes on here, it says the regulators, Regius, I think that's how you pronounce it, claim that the report into the bank's collapse is too technical and incomplete to be published, is frankly preposterous. So you can go through here and check out this article, basically saying that we're too dumb to, it's just too much information for us to comprehend and handle. Interview, China-Pakistan trade could exceed target. Pakistani's ambassador says China and Pakistan could exceed their 2015 bilateral trade volume target of $15 billion US, it says, with the soaring growth in bilateral trade. Pakistan's ambassador to China, Masood Khan, told Xinhua, says here, China pledges to enhance bilateral ties, military links with Israel, and to me this is pretty big news. China and Israel should boost their bilateral relationship as well as inter-military links, says China Defense Minister Luang Guangli in Beijing said on Monday. So it says, while talking with Israeli Navy Commander Admiral Eliezer Marom, Ling said Sino-Israeli ties have developed smoothly since the establishment of diplomatic relations in '92. So it says as the two countries' political mutual trust deepens, bilateral trade links also increases. So this is, if you don't know, China basically, along with Russia, dumped the U.S. dollar in bilateral trade recently. So one of the biggest news I think that went uncovered and basically under the radar. So yeah, they're tying relations with Russia and now Israel, and I've covered it recently too, Iran. So. Honestly, I don't think there's really any nationalism left. I think the only country that's really nationalistic is Israel. I think all the other countries have lost their sovereignty. And I really don't think that, the U.S. is run by the United States government and its people that run the government. I don't think that China is run by the people, even though it's called the People's Daily Online, their newspaper and that. I don't think Russia is run by the people. I mean, it's run by mafias like Japan, right? So it's a big joke to think that nationalism is still alive and kicking, except in Israel. But they all march lockstep, right? Everything happens for a reason. When you hear these explosions like in Stockholm and that, everything happens globally. They all do it at the same time, the same preventative measures with the body scanners, everything. Oh, the economic crisis affects everybody. And this is all being done by design to make you feel like you are trapped in this global government, this global world, this global area as your global citizens, right? So, and you can just say, go F yourself, get out of my country. I'm a sovereign individual and we're a sovereign nation. And we don't want you, we don't need you. So just get the hell out. And people could just say that to these bastards, these bankers, these globalist bankers, and the UN and WHO and WTO and NATO, but they don't, because they actually feel that they have some kind of invested interest out of it, and that's my definition of mind control. They're actually fooled that they're going to have some kind of better a result or outcome out of this whole global government, all these global bodies and entities and NGOs than the NGOs themselves and the private central banks, right? No, they're gonna profit more than you. I don't know why people are so naive about that. Wealthy Beijingers buy foreign homes. Strict policies introduced by the government to cool the rocketing real estate market in Beijing have led many of the city's richest residents to look overseas for their real estate investments. Says here, Chinese department store lavatory costs £500 to use. A department store in China has installed a public lavatory only open to shoppers who spend a minimum of £500, illustrating the widening gap between the country's rich and the poor. Wealthy, we just covered that. Moving on here. Rural schools recruits international students to stay afloat. A rural school in New York with one of the highest per pupil spending rates in the states has boosted enrollment by 25% by recruiting international students to fill its dwindling classrooms. Next one up, Medicaid cuts. Teeth pulled and transplant called off. In Illinois, a pharmacist closes his business because of late Medicaid payments. In Arizona, a young father's liver transplant is canceled because Medicaid suddenly won't pay for it. In California, a dentist pulled teeth that could be saved because Medicaid doesn't pay the root canals. So, and says some states have cut payments to doctors, paid bills late, and trimmed benefits such as insulin pumps and obesity. It says it's all due to the budget-busting costs of health care program that serves 58 million poor and disabled Americans. So, and just imagine when this healthcare bill or eugenics bill, death bill, really kicks in. There's states right now that are saying that it's basically unconstitutional and that they can't force this on the states because it's the states. This national federal health care bill is actually going to screw the states over because the states are going to be the ones that are going to end up having to expand Medicare when they don't have the money. They don't have the money, and the federal government is forcing this on them. That's why it's unconstitutional, right? So this is another propaganda piece. You can go through here and read it. And finishing up here, signs of the times. Netflix added, New York Times dropped from S&P 500. Yeah, that's right. The slaves, they don't really care about information. They just basically want to be entertained to death. So moving on here, Gary to close libraries, main branch targeted, and Twitter. Twitter adds 100 million new users in 2010, all volunteering to give up their information. Thank you.